Welcome back to another episode of Upawave MTG, a channel dedicated to exploring power levels in EDH. I'm your host Jacob. If you want to help support the channel, check out my Fiverr, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Leave a comment below letting me know what commander you want to see brewed across the power level spectrum. I've also got the skirmish version of this deck tag up here, and also we'll have the glory version out within the next couple of days. Got a really great guest that's going to come on and share one of their spicy brews. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Liberator is a legendary Thopter with flash and flying. You may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if an amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than Liberator Urza's Battlethopter's power, put a +1/+1 counter on Liberator. Really great card, allows us to play kind of a control type of game. So let's go ahead and get into it. We've got the Ugin. You know it. You hate it. If you're like me, I absolutely hate playing against this card, but it's so good in this deck. The main thing we care about here is the -X, where we can exile each permanent with converted mana cost extra less. That's one or more colors. This will not hit your opponent's lands, but since we're a completely colorless deck, this is not going to exile any of our stuff. Essentially a one-sided board wipe, super powerful. Moving on to our creatures, we've added cards with a lot more oomph. Urza does say you can cast colorless spells and artifact spells though they had flash, which means that we can cast Eldrazi. So we've added all our big boys here. We've got stuff like the Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, Kozilek the Great Distortion. We've got our Ulamogs in the deck. We've got Void Winter. And we got a really sweet tech here, and that's Conduit of Ruin. So when you cast Conduit of Ruin, you may search your library for a colorless creature card with converted mana cost or mana value 7 or greater and reveal it. Shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. The cool thing about this card though is that it says the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. And because Urza or Liberator allows us to cast spells with flash, we can cast a spell on every turn, or a creature spell on every turn, and get that cost reduction. A little bit more cost reduction with stuff like the Founder Inspector. We've kept some of our ramp from the skirmish tier, stuff like Hedron Archive, Ornithopter of Paradise, Plague Mirror. We don't have as many equipment in this version to kind of take advantage of that effect, but we still do have some cards that we can throw on it. Hope of Gearper to help interact with players, stop them from either countering stuff on our turn when we want to try and combo, or stopping another player from attempting to combo if you think they're going to go for it on their turn. Now we do have a few infinite mana combos in the deck, and Thrawn Spider is going to still be in the deck from that skirmish version. So in addition to just being some pretty decent value, being able to get artifacts, this can serve as an infinite mana outlet if we do set up that combo. In addition, we've also got the Walking Ballista that we can use to ping the table down. We've got the Wandering Archaic, which is great into some of those grindier matchups, being able to, or essentially forcing our opponents to pay an extra 2 for their spells, or else we get copies of it. Seems really great here. And then we've added this Rug of Smothering, which is going to punish those combo players, those players that want to storm off, because they're going to have to take lose 1 life for each spell they've cast this turn whenever they cast a spell. The cool thing about that is that we've got Liberator, which gives all our stuff flash essentially. So we're only going to be taking 1 or 2 damage max when we are casting our spells, because we can just cast 1 spell on one person's turn, cast a spell on the next person's turn. So we play around this piece really well. Moving on to our sorceries, we've added an All Is Dust. Each player sacrifices all colored permanents he or she controls. Again, this will not hit lands, but again, it's much like the Ugin, where we're essentially just doing a one-sided board wipe. It's going to be really hard for our opponents to get back into the game after this. It also has some really fun synergy with the It That Betrays. So whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card in the battlefield under your control. And since All of Dust makes each player sacrifice everything, we're going to get all those permanents they sacrifice go on our side of the field. It's going to be a great time. We've still got the Introduction to Annihilation, just decent removal. Again, where colors don't have great options in terms of removal, so we're going to take what we can get. Not of this world, since we have increased the amount of big dudes in our deck, this is going to be pretty easy for us to cast for free. And we also generate a lot of mana in this deck anyway, so if, we don't have a creature with power 7 or greater out just yet, actually hard casting this might not be that hard. We've still got Scour from the Existence. This is actually going to be a potential outlet for one of our combos, so we're keeping it in. It's kind of costly, but being able to exile everything on the board seems pretty decent. And then we've got other removal options. Still have the Spatial Contortion, really great removal spell. Warping Well for stopping our opponent's sorcery speed board wipes. I like it a lot. And then we've got the Titan's Presence. This is going to be a lot more consistent since we will have more creatures with higher power that we can reveal to with this card. And moving on to our artifacts, let's go ahead and cover some of these combos that we've got in the deck. So the first one is going to be the classic Basalt Monolith combo. We can create infinite mana two ways with this card. So we've got Basalt Monolith, and then we can either use Forsaken Monument, which is going to make all of our permanents, whenever they tap for a colorless specific mana, we can add an additional colorless to our mana pool. So with Basalt Monolith, we're going to tap Basalt Monolith, and we're going to make 4 colorless mana. Then we can pay 3 to untap it, and every time we tap it for mana, we're going to generate 1 additional mana. Bada bing, bada boom. You got infinite mana now. The next way we can go infinite with Basalt Monolith is with our Rings of Brighthearth. And from there, so we're going to tap our Basalt Monolith for 3, and then we're going to activate Basalt Monolith's ability to untap Basalt Monolith. And you actually do need 2 extra mana in order to start this combo off. So when you activate the ability to untap Basalt Monolith, it's gonna trigger the Rings of Brighthearth, and then we can pay 2, and we can untap that Basalt Monolith again. So essentially, we're gonna untap it once with the Rings of Brighthearth, copying that ability. We're gonna, in response to the original Basalt Monolith untap ability, we're gonna tap it for 3 mana, and then that's gonna untap it again. So this generates 6 mana, and in order to do this combo, it costs 5 mana. So every time we do this interaction, we're gonna generate 1 additional mana. And from there, you've got infinite mana again. The other combo we've got in the deck is with our Krark Clan Ironworks, and this one's a little interesting. So what we're going to do is we need a Spine of Ishaw out in the battlefield. We need the Krark Clan Ironworks, a Sculpting Steel, and then a card that can reduce our artifacts by 1. So with that, our Sculpting Steel is only going to cost 2 mana. From there, we can cast our Sculpting Steel for 2 mana, have it enter as a copy of Spine of Ishaw. That's going to destroy a permanent. From there, we can sacrifice the Sculpting Steel with our Krark Clan Ironworks to make 2 colorless mana. Because it is Spine of Ishaw, when we sacrifice it, it's going to get that trigger to return it to our hand. From there, we can recast our Sculpting Steel because it only costs 2 mana, and we just generated 2 colorless mana. And from there, we can destroy every permanent on the board. And if you don't win after that, well, your opponents have really great mental, and hats off to them. They're probably not going to win, though, after that. In terms of outlets for our infinite mana, we've got the Staff of Domination, which we can use to draw our entire deck. Sensei's Divining Top is another card we can use to potentially draw our deck. So what we're going to do is, if we have the Rings of Brighthearth, we can activate Sensei's Divining Top to draw a card. It's going to trigger our Rings of Brighthearth. We're going to copy that Sensei's Divining Top trigger. So what's going to happen is we're going to draw a card, put the Sensei's Divining Top on top of our library, and then our original Sensei's Divining Top activation is going to resolve, and we're going to draw that Sensei's Divining Top. And from there, we will be able to draw out our entire deck with infinite mana. Another way we can, again, we've got that Thrawn Spider, which will allow us to basically search up all the artifacts in our deck. Another way for us to utilize that infinite mana. And then we also have, like I said before, the Walking Ballista, which we can just cast for 5 million and then ping our opponents down. The other really sweet way we can win is with Codex Shredder. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make the infinite mana with Basalt Monolith plus the Rings of Brighthearth. And then from there, we are going to cast our Codex Shredder, and we are going to activate Codex Shredder to return target card from our graveyard to our hand. And because sacrificing the Codex Shredder is part of a cost, it's going to be in our graveyard once we activate this ability. The Rings of Brighthearth is going to trigger, and then we can activate Rings of Brighthearth, and we can copy the Codex Shredder ability to return a card from our graveyard to our hand. And now Codex Shredder is in our graveyard, which means that the Codex Shredder copied ability can target our original Codex Shredder. So from there, you can return another card from your graveyard plus the Codex Shredder to our hand. And from there, you can recur something infinitely. Now what we're going to recur is that Scour from Existence, because at this point, we'll be able to exile something, and then return it to our hand, and we will be able to exile our opponent's stuff infinitely. Also, if you just have infinite mana, you can also do Spine of Ishsaw plus Corp Clan Ironworks. That will work just as well. Sacrifice the Spine, it comes back to your hand, you recast the Spine, you're going to destroy all your opponent's permanents. And then our last combo, it's kind of a combo. We've got our Mystic Forge plus Sensei's Top plus our cost reducer with the Foundry Inspector, and essentially this is just going to let us draw through the deck. If you want to, you could add Aetherflux Reservoir. I didn't really feel a need to do that. As we're going through this battle version, you'll notice we're not really on the, the 3-cost rocks that we were on before, aside from the Basalt Monolith, because that's a combo piece. We got a lot of 2-drop rocks. We've got Expedition Map to help us find some really important utility lands in the deck. We've added our swords to the deck. We're not really a Voltron type of deck, but these swords are going to help us generate a lot of value, allow us to control the board a little bit more, since we don't have access to a ton of removal options in these colors. We've added the Stasis Coffin from the Brothers War. This card seems super sweet, especially since we can flash it in with Urza, or with Liberator. Since we can flash it in with Liberator, basically just a way to protect ourselves when our opponents cast that Crater Hoof or tries to kill us with some kind of infinite damage combo. Really great card here. Some other notable includes, we've added this Horizon Stone. I think this card would be super sweet in a deck like this, since we can either threaten to cast spells, or if we don't cast anything, no one threatens, or there's no reason to respond to one, we can just tap all of our stuff, hold up a bunch of colorless mana, and then we can use it later. Seems really great. And then when you combine that with the Unwinding Clock, it's just going to get ridiculous. We're going to start making a ton of mana. So this interaction seems really fun, wanted to throw it in. And then we've also got the Mind's Eye, so we can use all of our extra mana and start drawing a lot of cards, get that card advantage engine going. And moving on to our lands, we've definitely increased the amount of utility that we're getting out of our lands. Stuff like Blast Zone is going to be really great. This Eye of Ugin, which is going to reduce the cost of all Eldrazi spells by 2, but it's also going to allow us to just continuously search our library for colorless creature cards. And they don't have to be Eldrazi. We can grab our artifact creatures if we really want to. So it seems like a pretty sweet include here. Field of the Dead, since we have so many non-basics, just to get extra value, get some zombies going, a little bit of blocking action. Homeward Path, so we can get our stuff back. A lot of these Eldrazi type of lands. Sanctum of Ugin's gonna be really sweet for tutoring stuff up. Shrine of the Forsaken for a little bit more Eldrazi type stuff. Witch's Clinic to give our commander lifelink could be super sweet. Inventor's Fairs and a little bit of extra tutoring power and a Rogue's Passage. But yeah, just in general, moving up from that skirmish tier to the battle tier, getting more value out of our lands, a little bit less of those basics. It's going to be really great for increasing the power level of our deck. Thanks for watching this episode of Opal Wave MTG. Until next time.